I stood waist deep in the cold water. A wave pushed me down, and my son Jason and his wife Kelly were laughing on the shore. "Mom, you just want attention," Kelly shouted, holding her phone. I floundered, swallowing salt water, and they filmed. That day, I realized that the people I had sacrificed everything for had betrayed me. But I wasn't drowning, I was waking up. Their laughter was the last thing they gave me before I decided they would pay. I was drowning. The waves slammed into me, cold and relentless, filling my throat with salt. My arms flailed, searching for air, but the water pulled harder. My foot caught on a jagged rock, and I went under again. Above the roar of the ocean, their laughter cut through, sharp like glass. Jason and Kelly stood on the shore, their silhouettes dark against the gray North Carolina sky. Kelly's phone glinted in her hand, capturing my struggle. And you're not actually drowning, are you?" she called, her voice dripping with mockery. I clawed at the sand, my knees scraping against shells. The tide shoved me forward, then yanked me back. My chest burned, but I dragged myself onto the beach, coughing, shivering. My dress clung to my skin, heavy with seawater. I forced myself to stand, my legs trembling, and faced them. Jason's smirk was lazy, almost bored. "Mom, enough. Everyone's staring," he said, his tone the same one he used when I overcooked his steak. I didn't answer. My teeth chattered, but I held my ground. Kelly tilted her head, her blonde curls bouncing. "Oh, Ian, you're so dramatic," she said, her laugh high and brittle, like a champagne glass shattering. She tapped her phone, probably posting the video already. My humiliation, their entertainment. I wanted to scream, to claw that smug look off her face, but my voice stayed locked in my throat. "I'm not playing," I said, barely above a whisper. The words felt heavy, final. They turned away, still chuckling, as if I were a child throwing a tantrum. I stood there, dripping, the wind biting my face. The beach was nearly empty, just a few gulls circling above, their cries blending with the waves. My fingers curled into fists, nails digging into my palms. I wasn't just cold. I was burning inside, a slow, steady fire. They thought this was a game. They thought I was nothing. I walked home alone, the sand sticking to my feet, my wet dress slapping against my thighs. The streets of our small coastal town were quiet, the clapboard houses hunched against the wind. My house was at the end of the lane, a modest two-bedroom with peeling paint and a sagging porch. Inside, the kitchen was dark, the only light coming from a flickering bulb above the sink. I didn't bother turning on the lamp. I peeled off my dress, let it fall in a sodden heap, and pulled on a sweater. My hair was still damp, curling against my neck like seaweed. I sank into a chair at the kitchen table, its surface scarred from years of use. My keys lay there, glinting faintly, a small reminder of what I still controlled. This house. My life. I picked them up, squeezing until the metal bit into my palm. The pain grounded me, sharpened my thoughts. They'd laughed while I struggled. My own son, the boy I'd raised, fed, sacrificed for. And Kelly, who wore her entitlement like a crown. They'd crossed a line, and something in me snapped. Not loudly but quietly, like a wire stretched too far. I opened a drawer, the wood scraping against itself, and pulled out a folder. Financial documents, old and creased, with Jason's name scrawled across them. Bank statements, loan agreements, numbers that told a story they thought I'd forgotten. My fingers traced the edges, the paper cool against my skin. Their laughter echoed in my head, but now it fueled me. I wasn't the weak, pathetic woman they saw. Not anymore. I spread the papers across the table, the numbers blurring under my gaze. My eyes stung, but I didn't cry. Crying was for the old Ian, the one who believed in promises. The one who thought family meant loyalty. I leaned back, the chair creaking, and stared at the documents. The numbers were more than debt. They were a map. A way to make them pay. I could almost hear the waves again, pulling me under, but this time, I wasn't fighting to surface. I was diving deeper, searching for something sharp. The kitchen was silent, save for the faint drip of the faucet. I looked at the papers and a memory stirred. Years ago, signing over my savings to Jason, believing in his dreams. Believing in him. The numbers stared back, cold and unyielding. And I knew this was where it all began. The kitchen was dim, the lamplight pooling on the table like spilled wax. The financial documents lay spread before me, their edges curling like old skin. They smelled of dust and regret, but the numbers screamed of my stupidity. My fingers paused on a bank stamp. Its red ink faded but sharp enough to cut through the years. I closed my eyes, and the past rushed in uninvited. 10 years ago, after my husband's heart gave out, I sat in a bank, the air thick with the scent of polished wood and stale coffee. My hands shook as I signed a check, draining my savings for Jason's yacht rental business. "It's a sure thing, Mom," he'd said, his smile wide, convincing. "You'll see." I believed him. I always did. The teller's pen scratched as she processed the transfer, and I felt a hollow ache, like I was giving away a piece of myself. I sold my mother's ring next. It was gold, with a small sapphire that caught the light like a trapped star. I'd worn it every day since her funeral, but Jason needed the money. The pawn shop smelled of mildew, and the man behind the counter barely looked at me as he slid a check across the glass. I tucked it into my purse, my fingers brushing the empty spot on my hand. "This is for him," I told myself, but the words tasted like ash. Nights blurred into months. I worked late, hunched over spreadsheets, my eyes burning from the screen's glare. Jason's business was bleeding, and I took loans to plug the holes. My credit score tanked, but I didn't care. He was my son, my only family. Meanwhile, Kelly spent thousands on handbags and weekend trips, posting photos with captions like "living the dream." I saw one in Jason's office once, her dress glittering under the chandelier, her laugh loud enough to drown out my questions. "Ian, you're too serious," she said, waving a manicured hand. "Relax a little." Relax. I'd muttered, my voice tight. "Someone has to pay for this." She rolled her eyes and Jason just shrugged, his attention already on his phone. I stood there, invisible, holding a stack of bills they'd never see. "We'll pay you back, Mom," he said once, his tone light, like he was promising to mow the lawn. I clung to those words, even as they faded. Back in the present, I opened my eyes. The kitchen was cold, the table scratches like a map of my sacrifices. I flipped through the documents, my pen scratching as I underlined numbers, debts, missed payments, lies. My coffee mug sat untouched, its steam long gone. I wasn't that woman anymore, the one who begged for gratitude. I'd given them everything, and they'd thrown it back in my face, laughing while I drowned. I stopped at a contract, its pages stapled together, Jason's signature bold at the bottom. My breath caught. This was it. The loan I'd co-signed, the one he swore he'd handle. The numbers didn't lie, but he did. My fingers tightened around the paper, the edges crumpling. I could still hear Kelly's voice from years ago, sharp and careless. "You always make a big deal out of nothing, and nothing." That's what they thought of me. I set the contract aside, separate from the others. The house was quiet, the only sound the faint hum of the fridge. I leaned back, my sweater catching on the chair's splintered edge. They'd taken my money, my pride, my trust. But they'd left something behind, a crack in their armor. This contract was my key, and I'd use it to unlock their downfall. I glanced at the clock on the wall, its hands creeping forward. Time was a thief, but tonight it was on my side. I'd been their doormat for too long, but no more. The numbers on the page blurred as my thoughts sharpened. I'd given them everything, but I wasn't empty yet. I had one thing left, my resolve. I lifted my eyes from the papers. The clock ticked, steady and unyielding, and I knew the time had come. His signature stared up at me, bold and careless, like he'd never expected me to look twice. My fingers trembled, not from fear but from a rage so deep it felt like fire in my bones. I squeezed the contract, the paper crinkling under my grip. No more. No more of their laughter, their disdain, their belief that I was nothing. The clock on the wall ticked, each second a hammer striking my resolve into shape. I set the keys on the table, their faint jingle a reminder of what I still held control. My laptop hummed as I powered it on, the screen's glow casting shadows across the kitchen. Old financial reports were buried in folders, forgotten but not gone. I clicked through them, my eyes scanning numbers I knew better than Jason ever would. Debts he'd hidden from clients, loans he'd defaulted on, deals he'd fudged to keep up appearances. He thought he was clever, but I'd been his safety net too long not to know where the holes were. My pen scratched as I jotted notes, the ink bleeding slightly on the cheap paper. Every figure was a brick in the wall I'd build around them. I paused, my thoughts drifting to Kelly. Her weakness was easier to pin down. I opened her social media. Her posts a parade of excess. Designer bags, champagne flutes, captions dripping with self-importance. Blessed, she wrote under a photo of her and Jason on a yacht. My yacht, paid for with my sacrifices. I screenshotted it, my lips curling. Her whole world was a house of cards, built on likes and lies. Years ago in Jason's office she'd stood there, her dress sparkling like she was on a red carpet. Jason's getting me that new bag and don't worry, she'd said, her voice syrupy with condescension. I'd been holding a stack of invoices, my knuckles white. You don't need another, I'd replied, my tone sharp enough to cut. She'd laughed, tossing her hair. And Jason hadn't even looked up from his phone. I was background noise to them, a nuisance they tolerated. I shook my head, pulling myself back to the present. The kitchen smelled faintly of coffee, the mug still cold on the table. I straightened my shoulders, my posture shifting, as if I were stepping into a new skin. They thought I was weak, a relic they could mock. But I wasn't. I knew their secrets, their cracks, and I'd pry them open until their world crumbled. My eyes narrowed as I scrolled through Kelly's posts again. Every photo was a clue, a thread I could pull. But I needed more, something concrete, something that would hit Jason where it hurt. I thought of Tom, an old friend from my accounting days. He'd worked with Jason years ago, before things soured. Tom knew things Jason thought were buried. I grabbed my phone, my thumb hovering over the screen. This was it, my first step. I typed a message. Tom, it's in and need your help. It's important. My finger lingered, then pressed send. The screen glowed, the message stark against the dark. I set the phone down, my heart steady now, no longer racing. They'd underestimated me, but that was their mistake. I wasn't the woman who drowned anymore. I was the one who'd make them sink. The clock ticked louder now. Or maybe it was just in my head. I leaned back, the chair creaking under me. The contract lay on the table, its edges sharp in the lamplight. I could almost see Tom's face, hear his voice telling me what I needed to know. The phone stayed silent, but I wasn't worried. I'd wait. I'd plan. And when the time came, I'd strike. I stared at the screen, the message sent, and knew this was only the beginning. The cafe door creaked as I pushed it open, the smell of burnt coffee hitting me like a wave. My heart thumped, a steady drumbeat under my sweater. I slipped my hand into my pocket, fingers brushing the keys, their cold metal grounding me. Tom was already there, hunched over a corner table, his flannel shirt rumpled like he'd slept in it. The place was half empty, the hum of the espresso machine mixing with the clink of cups. I slid into the chair across from him, my notebook tucked under my arm. And, he said, his voice low, eyes darting to the door. You sure about this? His fingers tapped the table, leaving faint smudges on the sticky wood. I nodded, pulling out my pen. How bad is it, Tom? Tell me everything. My voice was steady, but my pulse raced. I needed facts, not pity. He leaned closer, his breath smelling of mint gum. Jason's business is a house of cards. Owes 50 grand to 3 creditors, maybe more. He's been dodging them, fudging numbers to keep clients happy. He paused, glancing at me. He's in deep in an. One push and it all collapses. I scribbled notes, the pen scratched loud in my ears. 50,000. Dodged payments. My mind raced, piecing it together. Jason thought he was untouchable, but he'd left a trail. I kept my face blank, though my stomach twisted with a strange thrill. Names, I said. Who does he owe? Tom rattled off 3 companies, their names sharp and unfamiliar. I wrote them down, each letter a step closer to justice. The cafe's lights buzzed overhead, casting shadows on my page. I remembered Kelly's voice years ago in Jason's office. My followers love the yacht pics, she bragged, her phone flashing as she snapped another selfie. Her dress had shimmered, but her eyes were cold, dismissing me as she scrolled for likes. That was her weakness, her need to be seen, to be envied. I could use that. You okay? Tom asked, his brow creasing. I forced a smile, tucking the notebook away. Better than ever. I stood, the chair scraping the floor. Thanks, Tom. I owe you. He waved it off, but his eyes lingered, worried. I didn't care. I had what I needed. Back home, the kitchen was dark, the air heavy with the scent of damp wood. I spread Tom's notes across the table, the numbers glaring under the lamplight. My laptop glowed as I opened Kelly's social media. Her latest post was a photo of her in a silk scarf, captioned "Chasing Dreams." I snorted. Chasing my money, more like. I copied links, cross-referenced them with Tom's names. Every post was a crack in her perfect facade, a thread I could pull until it unraveled. I leaned back, the chair creaking. The keys sat on the table, glinting like a promise. Jason's debts were my leverage, but Kelly's vanity was my weapon. I imagined her face when the likes stopped, when her world shrank to nothing. My pen tapped the paper, a slow, deliberate rhythm. I wrote down the creditors' names again, circling them. They'd get a call soon, a nudge to tighten the screws on Jason. The clock on the wall ticked, its hands creeping toward midnight. I set the pen down, my eyes on the list. In my mind, I saw Jason's phone lighting up, creditors demanding answers he didn't have. His panic would be sweet, a taste of the chaos he'd sown. Kelly would scream, her carefully curated life crumbling. I smiled, a small sharp thing, and closed the notebook. The house was silent, but my thoughts were loud. Tomorrow I'd make my move. The list lay on the table, a map to their downfall, and I knew everything was about to change. The kitchen was a cave, lit only by the laptop's cold glow. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, the cursor blinking like a heartbeat. The email was ready, short, precise, anonymous. It listed Jason's debts, his lies, his hidden accounts. My IP was masked, my tracks covered. I clicked send. The message vanished into the void and I exhaled, a rush of adrenaline flooding my veins. It was done. I leaned back, the chair groaning under me. The screen reflected my face, sharp and unfamiliar, like a stranger who knew exactly what she wanted. I imagined the creditors opening my email, their fingers dialing Jason's number. He'd stammer, sweat, his charm useless against cold numbers. The thought sent a shiver through me, not fear but power. For the first time in years, I wasn't drowning, I was the wave. I clicked over to Kelly's social media. Her latest post was a complaint, veiled in her usual gloss. Some days test your patience. Hashtag keep shining. I laughed, a low bitter sound. Patience. She'd need more than that when the bank froze their accounts. I pictured her in Jason's office, her heels clicking on the polished floor, her voice shrill. "How are we supposed to pay for the gala, Jason?" she'd scream, her hands shaking as she clutched her phone. "The accounts are locked." Jason would snap back, his face red. "I'll fix it, Kelly. Stop freaking out." But he wouldn't fix it. Not this time. I could see the papers scattered on his desk, the coffee stains spreading like his panic. Her perfect nails would dig into her palms, her dreams of glamour slipping away. I saved the post, another piece of ammunition. The laptop pinged. An email confirmation from one creditor, then another. "We're investigating," they wrote. My lips curved, a quiet victory. The keys on the table caught the light, their edges sharp. I'd turned them from a symbol of my cage into a tool of my freedom. Every step was calculated, every move deliberate. They'd mocked me, but now they were the ones scrambling. I closed the laptop, the screen going dark. The kitchen smelled of cold coffee, the mug untouched beside me. I straightened, my shoulders square, my breath steady. The house was still, but I felt alive, electric. They were feeling it now, the pressure, the cracks in their world. This was just the beginning. A ripple that would grow into a flood. The clock ticked, its rhythm steady, unyielding. I stood stretching my arms, my shadow long against the wall. Outside, the night was thick, the ocean's distant roar a reminder of where this started. I walked to the window, the glass cool against my fingers. The street was empty, the town asleep. But then a shadow moved, a figure tall and familiar crossing the lawn. My breath caught. Jason. His silhouette was unmistakable. His shoulders hunched, his steps heavy. The doorbell rang, a sharp, angry sound that sliced through the silence. I didn't move. My hand rested on the curtain, my eyes fixed on his shape. He rang again, harder, the sound echoing in my chest. I stepped back, my heart steady despite the noise. He thought he could barge in, demand answers, scare me into submission. He didn't know who I was anymore. The keys glinted on the table, and I felt their weight in my mind. This was my house, my fight. I wasn't opening that door, not yet. The ringing stopped, but his shadow lingered. I retreated into the dark, ready for the storm he'd bring. The door rattled, a fist pounding hard enough to shake the frame. "Mom! Open up!" Jason's voice was raw, jagged with fury. I stood in the kitchen, the darkness wrapping around me like a shield. The keys lay on the table untouched, their faint gleam a quiet defiance. I didn't move. My breath was slow, deliberate, each inhale steadying me against the storm outside. The lock clicked and he burst in, the door slamming against the wall. His hair was a mess, his eyes bloodshot, his jacket wrinkled like he'd been pacing for hours. "What the hell did you do?" he shouted, his voice cracking. "You're spreading lies, ruining everything." He stepped closer, his fists clenched, the air between us thick with his rage. I stayed still, my hands resting lightly on the table's edge. "I didn't do anything, Jason," I said, my voice low, calm, a blade wrapped in silk. "You built this mess. Not me." He laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Don't play innocent. Creditors are crawling all over me, saying I'm hiding money. You think I don't know it's you?" His finger jabbed the air, inches from my face. I didn't flinch. His anger was loud, but mine was deeper, colder, a current he couldn't see. "You're paranoid," I said, my eyes locked on his. "Maybe you should check your books instead of yelling at me." My words were steady, but inside my heart twisted. This was my son, the boy I'd rocked to sleep, now spitting venom like I was the enemy. It hurt, but I buried the pain, let it fuel me. He paced, his boots scuffing the floor. "You're jealous, that's it. You can't stand that I made something of myself." He stopped, glaring. "If you don't stop, we're done. No calls, no visits. Nothing." The threat landed like a stone. Heavy but not enough to break me. I tilted my head, my lips tight. "You're already gone, Jason." The words slipped out, quiet but sharp, and his face twitched, a flicker of something. Guilt, maybe, before the anger swallowed it. He stormed out, the door slamming so hard the windows rattled. The silence that followed was heavy, pressing against my skin. I sank into a chair, my fingers brushing the keys. My phone buzzed and I glanced at it. Kelly's latest post. A cryptic jab calling someone a bitter old fool who can't let go. Me. Her words stung, a public slap, but they also sharpened my focus. She thought she could shame me into silence. She was wrong. I opened a drawer, the wood scraping, and pulled out a folder. Old documents, ones I'd ignored too long. My eyes scanned the pages, stopping on a contract. A deal Jason had bragged about, but the numbers didn't add up. The signature was his, but the terms were off, forged to trick a client. My breath caught. This was it, proof of his fraud, a weapon I could wield. I closed the folder, my hands steady now. The house smelled of rain, the storm outside creeping closer. Jason's threat echoed, but it was empty. He'd underestimated me, just like Kelly had with her post. They thought I was weak, a relic to be pitted. But I wasn't. This contract was my ace, and I'd play it when the time was right. I hid the paper in the drawer, its weight a promise. The clock ticked, slow and deliberate, counting down to their reckoning. I thought of Tom, his quiet warnings about Jason's lies. He'd know who to call, who'd listen. The contract would find the right hands, and when it did, they'd feel the full force of what they'd sown. I sat in the dark, the folder out of sight but heavy in my mind. Their end was coming, and I'd make sure of it. The kitchen was a shadow, the lamp's weak glow barely touching the edges of the table. The forged contract lay before me, its pages crisp, accusing. Jason's signature curled at the bottom, a lie in ink. I traced it with my finger, the paper whispering his betrayal. The keys sat nearby, their faint shine a reminder of my grip on this game. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the windows, but I was steady, my mind a blade honed sharp. I opened my laptop, the screen's light harsh against the dark. My fingers moved fast, drafting an anonymous letter to the IRS. Every word was deliberate, exposing Jason's fraud, fake contracts, hidden accounts, clients misled. I checked the IP mask twice, my pulse steady. "No trace, no mistakes." I clicked send. The message vanishing like a stone dropped into deep water. A ripple, soon a wave. My thoughts flicked to Kelly. Her vanity was a crack I could widen. I remembered her in Jason's office, twirling an address bought with my money. "This cost more than your monthly pension, Annan," she'd said, her laugh sharp as a splinter. I opened a burner account, typed a message to her biggest sponsor. "Check her claims. She's not who she says." I hit send, my lips twitching. One post, one lie exposed, and her world would wobble. I closed the laptop, the air thick with the scent of old paper. The clock ticked slow and relentless. I needed Tom for the next step. He'd know how to get the contract to the right hands without questions. I slipped the document into an envelope, my hands steady, and tucked it into my coat. The meeting was set for the industrial zone, away from prying eyes. The abandoned lot was cold, the air sharp with rust and salt. Shipping containers loomed like forgotten giants, their edges glinting under a lone streetlight. Tom's truck idled nearby, its headlights dim. I walked fast, my boots crunching gravel, the envelope heavy in my pocket. He stepped out, his face half-shadowed, his breath clouding in the chill. "And this is big," he whispered, his eyes darting. "You sure you want to do this?" I handed him the envelope, my voice low. "They chose this path, Tom. Not me." My words were ice, but inside a fire burned. He took the packet, his fingers brushing mine, and nodded once. No more words. I turned, the wind biting my face, and walked away, the crunch of my steps fading into the night. Back home, the kitchen was still, the keys unmoved. I sank into the chair, my coat still on, and checked my phone. A notification blinked. An IRS acknowledgement. A dry confirmation that they'd received my tip. My breath caught, not from fear but from the weight of it. The gears were turning, grinding toward Jason's ruin. Kelly's sponsor would see my message soon, and her facade would crack. I set the phone down, my eyes on the keys. In my mind I saw Jason's office, his phone ringing with calls he couldn't dodge. Kelly's posts, desperate for likes, would fall flat. The house creaked, the wind outside a distant roar, like the ocean that had tried to swallow me. I wasn't that woman anymore, gasping for air. I was the tide pulling them under. The screen went dark, but the notification lingered in my mind. I turned off the phone, feeling their world begin to fracture. I stood across the street from Jason's office, hidden by the shadow of an oak. The windows glowed, revealing chaos inside. Jason's voice carried a jagged shout that made the glass quiver. "Find me clients, damn it!" he roared, his silhouette pacing. Papers littered his desk, some fluttering to the floor like wounded birds. I clutched the keys in my pocket, their edges biting my palm, anchoring me to my purpose. The IRS had moved fast. Whispers of audits and frozen accounts had reached clients, who now fled like rats from a sinking ship. I'd seen it online, canceled contracts, angry reviews. Jason's empire, built on my sacrifices, was crumbling. I snapped a photo, the flash off, my hands steady. Evidence, not for them but for me. Proof that justice wasn't a dream. Years ago, in that same office, he'd leaned back in his chair, all charm. "Mom, this is an investment," he'd said, his voice smooth as whiskey. "You'll see returns, I swear." I'd handed over my savings, my heart full of hope. Now, watching him unravel, I felt no pity, only a quiet satisfaction, like the click of a lock sliding into place. I walked away, the ocean's distant murmur blending with the town's hum. Back home, the kitchen was cool, the air sharp with the scent of stale tea. My laptop hummed as I opened it, Kelly's social media loading fast. Her latest post was a lie wrapped in glitter. "Big things coming. Hashtag stay tuned." I scoffed. She was scrambling, posting through the panic, as if likes could save her. I opened my burner account, typed another message to her sponsor. "Her lifestyle's funded by fraud. They deeper." Send. Another crack in her world. I leaned back, the chair creaking. The keys glinted on the table, a silent vow. Jason's fall was loud, public, but Kelly's would be slower, a death by 1,000 cuts. I imagined her checking her phone, seeing fewer likes, fewer deals. Her sponsors were pulling back. I'd seen the emails, intercepted through a hacked link. She was bleeding relevance, and Jason was too buried to notice. The screen flickered, showing her next post, a photo of her smiling on a yacht. My yacht paid for with my blood. My jaw tightened, but my fingers stayed calm, saving the image. Every lie she told was another rope I'd used to bind her. The clock ticked, its hands creeping toward evening. Outside, the sky was heavy, clouds promising rain. I thought of Jason's office, the papers on the floor, his voice breaking. He was drowning now, just as I had, but no one was laughing for him. I closed the laptop, my eyes drifting to the keys. They weren't just metal, they were my way out, my way through. I stood stretching, my shadow sharp against the wall. The town was quiet, but in my mind, I heard the IRS agents flipping through files, clients slamming phones down, and Kelly posting, pretending while her world shrank. I opened her page again, refreshing it. A new post, desperate, asking for support in tough times. Her words were weak, a plea disguised as confidence. I screenshotted it, my lips curving. She was next, her fall already in motion. The keys caught the light, and I felt their weight in my chest. Her world was cracking, and I was the one wielding the hammer. I shut the laptop, knowing her facade was tearing at the seams. The cafe was dim, the air thick with coffee and regret. I sat in the corner, a newspaper shielding my face, my eyes on Kelly across the room. She was alone, hunched over her phone, her fingers trembling as she scrolled. Her makeup was smudged, her blonde curls limp, like a doll left out in the rain. The keys in my purse pressed against my thigh, a quiet reminder of my power. She didn't see me, didn't know I was watching her world collapse. My messages to her sponsors had hit hard. Brands were dropping her, their emails curt, final. Her follower count was bleeding, thousands gone in days, each loss a stab to her ego. I'd seen the posts, her frantic attempts to seem unbothered. But here, in the flesh, she was unraveling. Her lips moved, a whisper to no one, and her phone slipped, clattering on the table. I sipped my coffee, the mug warm, my pulse even. Years ago in her kitchen, she'd smirked at my sweater, frayed at the cuffs. "Ian, and is that from a thrift store?" she'd said, her laugh cutting deep. I'd been there to pay their electric bill, my checkbook open, my pride swallowed. "It's warm enough," I'd muttered, but her eyes had already moved on, dismissing me. Now watching her, I felt no anger, only clarity. She'd built her throne on my back, and I was pulling it down. I opened my notebook, jotting her gestures, the way her thumb hovered, the way her shoulders slumped. Evidence of her fall, for my own satisfaction. Back home, my laptop glowed, her page open. Her latest post was a plea, masked as gratitude. "Thankful for my true fans. Hashtag keep going." The comments were sparse, cruel. I typed one last message from my burner. "Her success is a lie. Ask her husband." Send. The final nail. I thought of her calling Jason, her voice breaking. "You have to fix this," she'd beg. But he was drowning too, his phone off, his office empty. I'd seen his car outside a bar last night, his silhouette slumped. They were fracturing, each too selfish to save the other. My coffee cooled, but I didn't care. I was warm inside, a fire fed by their ruin. The cafe's door jingled, but I didn't look. Kelly stood, her chair scraping, and left, her steps unsteady. I waited, then followed at a distance, the keys jingling softly in my purse. The town was gray, the ocean's roar faint. I walked past their old house, its windows dark, a sold sign staked in the yard. The paint was peeling, the lawn overgrown, a ghost of the life they'd flaunted. I stopped, my fingers brushing the sign's cold metal. They'd lost it all. House, status, each other. I remembered Kelly's laugh, Jason's promises, the beach where they'd mocked me. That ENN was gone, replaced by someone who struck without mercy. The sign swayed in the wind, a marker of my victory, but not the end. They had further to fall. I turned away, the street quiet, the air heavy with salt. In my mind, I saw them in a cheap motel, their bags packed, their voices sharp with blame. The keys were heavy in my purse, grounding me. I'd taken their world apart, piece by piece, and they'd never see me coming. The house loomed behind me, empty, a shell of their lies. I walked on, feeling their lives crumble to dust. The motel's neon sign flickered, casting a sickly glow over the cracked pavement. I stood in the shadows, my breath fogging in the cool night air. Jason and Kelly were there, dragging suitcases from their beat-up sedan. The car's springs groaned, heavy with the weight of their ruined lives. Their old house was gone, sold to cover debts I'd insured would bury them. My fingers curled around the keys in my pocket, their sharp edges a quiet victory. They didn't see me. They didn't need to. Jason's shoulders slumped, his jacket stained with sweat. Kelly's heels clicked unevenly, her hair a tangled mess. A suitcase tipped, spilling clothes onto the gravel. "This is your fault, Jason," she snapped, her voice shrill, cracking like thin ice. He didn't look at her, just muttered, "Shut up, I'm thinking." His tone was raw, stripped of the charm he'd once wielded. I snapped a photo, the phone silent, my hands steady. Proof of their fall, from my eyes only. Years ago, in their gleaming kitchen, Jason had painted dreams with his words. "Mom will live like kings," he'd said, his smile bright, convincing. I'd handed over my savings, my heart full of his promises. Kelly had laughed then, her nails tapping a wine glass. "Ian, you're so simple," she'd said, her eyes dismissing me. Now watching them bicker in the motel lot, I felt no pity. Only justice, cold and sharp, like the keys in my hand. I slipped away, the ocean's distant roar blending with the hum of the town. Back home, my kitchen was still, the air heavy with the scent of ink and paper. I spread the documents on the table, sale records for their house, orchestrated through a broker I'd paid to stay quiet. My signature finalized the deal, reclaiming what was mine. The numbers were clean, precise, a map of their ruin. I traced them, my pen steady, my pulse calm. Through the motel's thin walls, I'd heard their fight earlier, passing by on my walk. Kelly's voice had been a blade, cutting through the night. "We're nothing now, Jason." "Nothing," he'd shouted back. I said, "I'll fix it." But there was no fixing this. His business was shuttered, clients gone, his name toxic. Kelly's social media was a graveyard, her sponsors silent. I'd made sure of that. My messages sharp and anonymous, slicing their world apart. The keys glinted on the table, catching the lamplight. They weren't just metal. They were my freedom, my control. I leaned back, the chair creaking, and checked my phone. A message from Jason blinked on the screen. "Mom, we need to talk. Please." His words were soft, desperate. A far cry from the rage he'd thrown at me before. Kelly's name was on it too, a joint plea. I didn't reply. Let them stew, let them beg. I pictured them in that cramped motel room. Their pride crumbling, their voices low as they planned to face me. The clock ticked, its rhythm a steady pulse. Outside, the night was thick, the stars hidden by clouds. I stood, stretching, my shadow long against the wall. The documents lay neatly stacked, a testament to my work. Their lives were in pieces, and I'd placed every shard. I imagined them standing before me, their eyes downcast, their words heavy with regret. Would they mean it? It didn't matter. I'd hear them out, but my heart was stone. I set the phone down, the message unread but burning in my mind. Their last step was coming, and I was ready. The door creaked, a slow groan that sliced the morning's quiet. Jason and Kelly stepped inside, their figures small against the light. Their clothes were wrinkled, their faces pale, etched with exhaustion. Jason's eyes darted, avoiding mine, while Kelly's hands twisted together, her nails chipped. The keys lay on the kitchen table, gleaming softly, a silent crown of my victory. I stood tall, my posture straight, my breath even. "Mom," Jason started, his voice low, trembling. We messed up. Bad. We're sorry." He swallowed, his Adam's apple bobbing. "Give us a chance to make it right." Kelly nodded, her lips quivering. "And please. We've lost everything. We didn't mean to hurt you." Her tone was syrupy, a plea wrapped in desperation, but her eyes flicked to the floor, unable to hold mine. I saw the lie in them, the same one I'd seen for years. I didn't move, didn't soften. The memory of the beach crashed over me, their laughter sharp and cruel, as I fought the waves. Kelly's voice mocking. "Ian, you live for us, don't you?" she'd said once, her smirk cutting deep as I paid their bills. Jason had stood by, silent, his indifference a betrayal sharper than words. Now they begged, but it was too late. "You chose this," I said, my voice steady, cold as the ocean's depths. "You laughed while I drowned. You took everything, my money, my trust, my pride. And now you're sorry." I tilted my head, my lips tight. "Words don't fix what you broke." Jason flinched, his hands clenching. "Mom, I know I was wrong. But we're family." "No." I cut him off, my tone final. "Family doesn't do what you did." I turned to Kelly, her eyes wide. "And you built your life on my back, then called me nothing. Get out." They stood frozen, the air thick with their defeat. I walked to the table, picked up a folder, and signed the final document for their house sale. The pen's scratch was loud, deliberate, sealing their fate. My money was back, every cent I'd bled for them, now mine again. I closed the folder, the sound sharp, and pointed to the door. Go. Kelly sobbed, a broken sound, but Jason grabbed her arm, pulling her out. The door slammed, the echo ringing in the stillness. I stood alone, the keys catching the light, their weight a comfort. The house smelled of coffee, the mug cold on the counter. I felt no guilt, only a quiet strength like a tide turning in my favor. I gathered the documents, my fingers brushing the paper, their edges crisp. The sale was done, but there was more to reclaim. Debts they'd dodged, lies they'd spun. I slipped the folder into my bag, my movements precise. The courthouse was waiting, the final piece of my plan. I thought of the beach, the waves that had tried to break me. They hadn't. I was stronger now, forged in their betrayal. I stepped outside, the air cool, the sky gray. The street was quiet, the town waking slowly. My bag was heavy, the documents a promise of justice. I walked toward the courthouse, my steps firm, the ocean's distant hum in my ears. The waves had once pulled me under, but now they carried me forward, toward a horizon I'd claim as mine. I clutched the papers, feeling the sea's call, its whisper urging me on. The courtroom was cold, its walls smooth and unyielding. The judge's voice rolled through the silence, steady, final. Judgment in favor of the plaintiff and in Clark. His gavel fell, a sharp crack that echoed in my chest. The documents in my hands felt lighter, their weight lifting with each word. I'd won. The money Jason stole, the years I'd lost, it was mine again. I nodded to my lawyer, my face calm, but inside, a tide of relief surged, warm and fierce. The keys in my pocket pressed against my thigh, a quiet promise of what came next. Jason wasn't there. Neither was Kelly. Their absence was a victory, their shame too heavy to face me. I stood, smoothing my coat, and walked out, the courthouse doors swinging shut behind me. The air outside was crisp, salted by the nearby sea. I didn't look back. The memory of the beach flooded in, the waves choking me, their laughter slicing through the roar. And in "You're just after attention," Kelly had shouted, her phone flashing as she filmed. I'd been weak then, gasping, broken. Not anymore. I drove to the beach, the same one where it all began. The sand was warm, slipping between my toes as I kicked off my shoes. The sea stretched wide, its surface calm, glinting under a fading sun. I walked to the water's edge, the waves lapping gently, no longer a threat. The keys in my hand caught the light, their edges worn but strong like me. I closed my eyes, the ocean's hum filling me, washing away the last of their poison. In my bag, a travel brochure lay folded. A trip to Italy, a dream I'd buried under their demands. I pulled it out, my fingers tracing the images of cobblestone streets and sunlit cliffs. I go soon, alone, free. The years I'd given them were gone, but the ones ahead were mine. I smiled, small but real, the first true smile in years. The sea whispered, its voice soft, approving, as if it knew my truth. I thought of Jason and Kelly, their lives reduced to a motel room, their pride shattered. They'd never laugh at me again. The documents had done their work, the court had spoken, and I was whole. Not just my money but my dignity, my strength. The waves rolled in, steady, eternal, and I felt their rhythm in my bones. I wasn't the woman who'd drowned. I was the tide, unstoppable, carving my own path. The brochure crinkled in my hand, its colors bright against the sand. I tucked it back, my eyes on the horizon. Italy was waiting, but so was the world. Every place I'd never seen, every dream I'd shelved. The keys jingled as I turned, my steps light, the sand cool under my feet. The town faded behind me, its weight lifting with each breath. I didn't need to look back. Their laughter was gone, drowned in the sea's endless song. I stood still, listening to the waves, their whisper now my own. If you like this story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Please help me reach 300 subscribers by the end of this week. Thank you for watching.